then you realize you need a backend like Node.js to ensure that you can have these cool features that you want work for everybody, not just for one person. And then you realize that you have to make sure that user data is stored somewhere that is accessible by everybody. So you need a database like SQL, Postgres, MongoDB even. Once you get all these things figured out, you then have to get served from the cloud somewhere. Normally it's AWS, Google Cloud, maybe even a physical node. You start doing this and you quickly find out that there are a few other roadblocks you have to get past. The first is, how do you actually deploy it? Normally it's done on an Ubuntu instance using some kind of composing software like Docker Compose, using Docker images, also using Apache or Nginx, the reverse proxy that calls to your public IP address so you can reach the local application running on that instance, and then setting up firewalls to make sure that people don't do bad things, right? And then once you get this done for your front-end application, you do it again for your back-end application, and once again for your database. And you quickly find out that there's an orchestration of dependencies and tooling that a lot of times require vendor lock-in. And if at any point in this setup, there's a configuration that's done incorrectly, some versioning issues, it allows for bad actors or hackers to hop over these firewalls and do bad things, right? This is what we're used to as developers building on Web 2. Granted, a lot of these cloud providers have provided some nice tools to abstract away some of these concerns, like apps for DigitalOcean and other things on Google Cloud. But these are still the things that are happening in the background, right? With ICP, all this is simplified quite a bit. The very first part that is made way simpler is serving a web application, right? Because ICP is pretty much a edge architecture and the DNS server all in one. When you deploy your application to the IC, it's automatically servable via secure HTTPS connection, and it's accessible by anybody around the world because of that, right? You don't have to worry about buying an SL cert and maybe using certbot to install it, right? You're just ready to go, and people can start using your front-end application. Because ICP uses WASM, you can code things up in your favorite language. My favorite language is Motoko at the moment, but you can write WASM canisters with Rust. You can write them in TypeScript, C++, Python, and what this allows you to do, and it's a super powerful share code amongst developers, right? If I made a Rust canister and I shared my functions with you, your Motoko canister could use and call those functions, right? This is a level of interoperability and autonomy that you don't get with Web 2 applications. On top of that, you have something called orthogonal persistence. Orthogonal persistence is a really big word, but essentially what it means is that it allows the developer to persist their data or in their state using the default data structures that we're used to. Think arrays, data structures, things like that, vectors, all these things that we're used to using. You can just save your data and persist them that way. So if there was a list of privileged users I want to store somewhere, I can put them to an array on my canister, and that will persist. So there's no need now for a MongoDB database. There's no need for an SQL database. It's for free, and it's super easy. There's no overhead, no extra lift to persist data. And because of the way replicas work and subnets work, that data is available across all the different canisters and replicas that your users interact with across your application. So this is how the ICP protocol makes what you do on Web 2 better. But more than making Web 2 better, it does things that you can't really do in Web 2. DOM calls this open internet services. It's a really cool way of calling it. But essentially what that means is that you can have an API that's not revocable, right? If I were to create a service right now, which I have done, the registry and page strings, but I don't want to get too into the weeds with that. But if I made an API, I can dialify that API. So it's controlled by a governance system that's backed by a token. And anybody can use the API. Anybody can submit a proposal to change that API. And as long as it doesn't interfere with any kind of region-specific legality issues like a gambling app, for instance, you can use it wherever you are and nobody can shut it down, right? This is super cool and it's only possible through ICP. I've been talking a lot. I say a lot of things. If there are any questions before I keep going, just type them in the chat and I can answer them.
we don't have questions yet, but yeah, I'll be sure to type them in the chat and or interrupt you if there's something that we need to mention. Okay, uh, so don't worry. I know I'll be backstage watching for anything.
Okay, awesome. So I talked about WASM. The Internet Computer allows you to build your canister, which is their version of a smart contract using your favorite language, right? Or anything that can compile down to a WASM binary that can be deployed and uploaded to the Internet Computer, which is quite a lot of languages as of right now. In the beginning, it was just Rust and Motoko, but as I mentioned before, you can write a WASM canister using C++, Python, TypeScript, and it seems to be more uh, languages that are having CDKs built for them. So it's pretty cool that level of interoperability that you get, right? Because there are some libraries that are only available in more mature languages like TypeScript or Rust that may not be available in other languages. And you could build a canister using that language to access that library and all of its cool features and tools. And then in a different canister that was built with a different language, you can access that feature of functionality. And this allows for a level of collaboration amongst developers that you really don't see on Web 2. If I wanted to be a good Samaritan for the protocol and I want to make available some cool utility methods, I could spin up a canister and I could publish the canon files. And any developer that wanted to access that utility could simply target that canister ID and start calling those methods, right? Canisters are interoperable and they're autonomous by default. And because they're running in a tamper-proof environment, there's no need to worry about firewalls or any of those extra complexities that come along with traditional Web 2 development. Um, is I think that's really all I have. I mean, there's a lot more. To really get into the meat of what ICP is, it takes a lot more than we have here. But that's that's the condensed version, at least the most I could condense it down to, or getting into some of the weeds of other parts of the protocol.
Okay, so like let's say summarizing what you mentioned, I mean like the key parts I would say is one would be that I mean among the key things you mentioned, one is the canisters, right? Which is I suppose like the
It's hard for me to hear.
okay,
You, yeah, you might need to type because the hotel here, the internet is just not the best.
okay. I'll type.
Okay. So as of right now, there isn't a global registry to find canisters. You can Well, I guess there is, right? You can go to an Explorer and you can see all the canisters that are running on Internet Computer, but it really isn't an Explorer that allows you to search a canister with any kind of query parameters, specifically like a canister spun up by a certain individual or by a certain name. But there's a directory of all of the canisters running on the ICP through the Explorer, right? You can search via your principal and find the canister and then the canon files that describes the interface for it.
Okay. Um, let me type the next one. Um,
And I'll give you the actual Explorer now if anybody's interested. The ICP dashboard is one, and ICP Explorer is another. I'll post this inside of the chat. You can go there and you can search any canister. But you would have to have their canister ID unless you want to just search through the pages of different canisters running on the IC. So there are Python, Rust, and TypeScript SDKs for ICT. Are new SDKs for other languages being developed? Yes, there's always new CDKs being developed for ICT. TypeScript is the newest one. Hazel is the name of that CDK. It's very powerful, and it's doing a lot of things that just makes the transition from Web 2 to ICT super easy. One of the latest things is the Express library that everybody's used to using with Node.js for making REST calls. The community and the developers behind the Hazel CDK have pretty much brought that over. So you can have the Express.js library inside of the Hazel CDK in your TypeScript canister, which is super cool. So yes and no. If to make it easy, you would use libraries that the community has created, right? Mops for Motoko. And again, Hazel has a lot of cool stuff that the developers behind that has done. But we have something called threshold signatures on the Internet Computer Protocol, which allows us to make cryptographically secured signatures and private keys and public keys that allow us to sign messages. And you can simply do a HTTP out call to that sign message to an Ethereum node to interact with a smart canister or to create a transaction. So I guess to answer your question, the easy way is to use a library that a community member might have made and upload it to MOPS or other package managers like that, or you can do it the gritty way and sign the message yourself using threshold signatures and shooting it out to a node using HTTP out calls.
Okay. And I guess the last question, I'm gonna type it, but the last question would be uh, where to find more technical resources. Um,
So my favorite place to go is the Discord. The dev community Discord is the best place to go. Some may say the forums, and the forums are good number two, but because Discord is way more like it's live and it's way more asynchronous than the forums, right? You can have somebody answer the question right then and now. You can have a live dialogue with somebody going back and forth as you try to figure things out. And most often, there are previous questions that are similar enough to yours that you can search Discord and get closer to whatever solution you're trying to find. And it helps you meet people and get to know the community. So definitely a Discord, definitely the dev community in Discord, and then the forums is a great way for a longer thread type of discussion, right?
okay, I will post the link to the Discord for anybody who doesn't have it yet. Okay, I will post the link to the Discord for anybody who doesn't have it. Well, I think then that's it. We don't have more questions. That is it then. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you for making time during your trip in Denver to be able to talk with us.
Of course,
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye bye.
of course. Have a good day, everybody.
Let me close that end session. Okay.
Nice. How
Okay.
was that?
Yeah, that was good. I just finished the transmission for that. I'm gonna wait for the next speaker. So I'll provide the links that you mentioned to the video and the Discord to the people who are watching so that they can review it later. Okay.
Awesome. I
Okay.
hope I didn't talk too fast. I felt in parts I was speaking a little quickly. They come to my mind so fast, and because I understand them so well, I just shoot it out. And I don't think to because some people, especially these people who are watching, they don't understand it as well as I do. So
No worry, no worries. I'm sure. I mean, the video that you provided provides a like they can pause it and everything and watch it on their at their proper speed, at the speed that they want.
true,
Okay.
you can always go back and rewind, right?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. See you around, Jonathan.
See you. Bye.
Bye. Hello, Barry. How are you?
I can't hear you at the moment. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes. Yes, I can hear you. Um, but could you check your settings? Could you check your settings?
I can't hear anything. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me check my settings.
Maybe your browser tab is muted.
Try it now.
Hello, hello.
There we
Testing
go.
1, 2, 3.
Yep, that was my settings. There we go.
Okay, cool, cool stuff. Okay, give me 1 minute, please. Okay, welcome everybody to our next session of the program of the Live AI Ideathon. It's a pleasure to be with you again. We have Barry. I'm sorry, I forgot to ask you how to properly pronounce your last name. Would it be Paisley?
That's
Paley?
right. That's correct. Barry Paisley.
Barry Paisley. Okay. We're here with Barry, who is joining us. He is currently at London, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome. Thank you for being with us. We know it's night for you. So Barry is a founder and leads Canny Store. So he's going to share with us a bit of his story, and we'll ask him a bit more about uh, his his company, what they're doing, why the challenges that they had, also why they chose the technical platform that they're using and the architecture that they're using. So just to get started, Barry, thank you again for being with us. And could you explain us a bit what is Canister? What do you guys do?
Sure. Thank you for having me. Firstly, so Canastore is literally part of the Canai ecosystem. Now, the Canine ecosystem is a multiple apps and services that empower creators such as musicians. So the reason that we essentially built an ecosystem is I'm essentially from the music and entertainment industry, 22 years. When I came into the Web3 space, I realized that building just an app like a streaming service is not going to actually solve the issues that I personally went through on my journey in the industry. So I decided to build an ecosystem that consists of a licensing protocol to protect copyrights, a broadcast station, and various other functions and services.
And so for the artists, what's the advantage of using Canister? What's that the use
Sure.
case for them?
Sure. So there's multiple use cases. Okay. The problem with the industry, once you've experienced the industry, you'd realize that the journey is actually quite difficult. You have to go over here to protect your copyrights. What do we know about copyrights? We have to pay lawyers to understand certain situations. Then we have to go over here if we want to distribute, over here if we like to market. Even if you look at apps, for example, a musician currently needs around 10 different apps to function. The musician or artist may need a TikTok, an Instagram, a YouTube. Then they'll need an intermediate like a DistroKid for distribution. That then leads you on to a Spotify, iTunes, and the list goes on. So we decided to build an ecosystem that does it all for you in that sense. It's a place that starts from storage. You get to store your intellectual property and your copyrights on the blockchain and then monetize that from there.
Okay, cool. So and in the same place, so it directly connects, I guess, in the same place, the artists and the
Yes.
listeners or audience, right?
Exactly that, because we face a problem with conversion rates, you see. So, for example, I've managed an artist that has millions of followers on Instagram. But when we post via the Facebook or the Instagram that has loads of followers, the reach is actually a very low percentage. For example, when the music video comes out, we have most of the community on Instagram, but it's on YouTube. So then trying to share the link and getting that community, which is your community that you worked hard and invested in to, in a sense, curate, you then have to migrate them from one platform to another. Then when the audio comes out, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple, you then have to then migrate your community again then to another platform, and we're losing money, we're losing traction. The conversion rates, people are falling off from one platform to the other. So that's a problem that we really want to target, right? It's all good targeting as individual situation, but therefore you're not really empowering anybody by doing that. So we could give people fish, as they say, or we can give them a net, so they can fish for themselves, and this is what we're trying to do with Canister.
Okay. What would you say? I suppose, especially in your case, I kind of think you do is kind of like a chicken and egg thing, right? Where you need the artists, but you also need the audience, right? Like both need to be there. You can't only have the audience without any content and artists, and vice versa. How do you balance that, manage that? Because that's a common scenario that many entrepreneurs, I guess, will get into, people with an idea, right? Where you need both sides of the equation. And how do you balance that act? How do you go first? How do you, yeah, manage to get both parts in?
it's a very interesting subject that you just brought up. In fact, what we're actually doing is undoing all of the mud in between that relationship. This is a relationship that is natural, you know, consumer and creator. It's a natural relationship. But the problem that we've got is too many gatekeepers and obstacles stand within that middle. So it's about removing all of these intermediates and third parties so that relationship can naturally come together, you know, and it's all about adding cool aspects to that. You know, for example, we're creating systems where the community can earn just by supporting their artists. They can earn with their artists. You know, there's a situation that we're creating in the ecosystem, which is a community label, which brings the fans and the creator together. The fans fund the creator, and the fans earn with the creators. So, you know, it's just about, as I said, you know, uniting what actually exists in that sense.
So what you mentioned is kind of like um, those fans or consumers. I don't know what's the word you use, but followers, fans, consumers of a band. They somehow can support but also invest in an artist.
Yes, yes. So as I mentioned, we have a function called the community label, and pretty much how that works, if I try and fly through it, is that I'm an artist, you know, I've licensed my content on Canastore and I own 100%. Now, I can say I want to actually sell 30%, right, to my fans to raise the funds in order for me to release this music. So once the music is released, the 30% will go to the fans. Now, this 30% is fractionalized. So as a artist, I could say, you know, I would like to fractionalize this 30% into 1,000 pieces. So then I have 1,000 pieces of my percentage that my fans can then invest in and earn with me, you know? So what that means, I may have 1,000 hardcore fans that are marketing with me, they're streaming with me, they're sharing with me, and they're earning with me. You know, so this is where we're going.
Cool, awesome, yeah, and interesting that, yeah, because I've that's one of the issues, or well, not an issue, but something that I see that artists typically need to pay attention to, especially with everything that's going on how to. It's very different the casual listener or consumer than the hardcore listener or consumer, right?
Mhm.
So, like with Canister, you can give something different to those hardcore followers, listeners, community, actually, as you
Yes.
mentioned, than the casual listener or somebody who just like
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, so that's cool. Okay, so this idea for Canistore, I suppose that you, as somebody that's been in the industry for, I believe you said, more than 20 years,
Mhm.
um, like the pain points, you were aware of them, right? I mean, the pain points, these issues. Um, have you tried to build something? I mean, to launch something, a product, a solution, before you learned about Web3, or not? Or it was until you learned about Web3 and the possibilities that you said, oh, that will allow me to solve these pain points that I know that have existed for a while?
So I've always been a problem solver. You know, I
Okay.
started off as a songwriter myself.
Okay.
You know, when I was tired of asking people to produce beats for me, I started to produce myself. You know, when I was tired of paying other people for studio time, I went and built a studio myself. So I've already got that mentality. So when I came across the internet computer and the canisters, etc., I was like, okay, this is going to solve a lot of issues.
Awesome. And could you walk us a bit through that process? How you went? I mean, from the idea to building it. If it's bootstrapped, like with your own resources, if you applied for a grant, if you looked for venture capital, how has that process been?
Right? How can I give you the short take on that? Because you're talking about a span of 3 years here, right? Right. So COVID hit. I was actually reaching a stage where I was running a nightclub. I'd already have been an artist touring. I'd already have been producer. I'd already had opened 3 studios in London. I already had managed artists, and now I was running the nightclub. COVID come, nightclub scene closed down. So a friend of mine, actually, he was working for the Affinity Foundation at the time, just as a sort of a community moderator and a creative. He said to me, come to the seminar. This was 2020, sort of pre-Genesis, right? He said, these guys, they're building something cool, and I think there might be something there for you. That's exactly how he put it to me. I attended the seminar. It was Tungsten, June the 30th. And I learned about the canister technology and the on-chain storage, and the ability to actually have all of this on the blockchain. The first thing that hit me was the copyright law, the issues that we have regarding protecting copyrights. And in the UK, the copyright law states that you are the copyright owner upon creation. We don't have an actual copyrights office, right? So I was like, okay, at the moment we have an issue with this, because where we store our copyrights, if we ever have to prove it, is actually on a computer, a hard drive, a mobile phone, a centralized server. So I was like, okay, this can be done on a canister. This will all be done in a canister. We can have the point where creators can upload, store that copyright along with the documentation, right? And that's on the blockchain. Further to that, there can actually be transactions because it's the blockchain. So therefore now we can also allow creators not only to store their license, but to actually license. So that's managing their copyrights to other entities. It could be a business, it could be a movie, it could be a game. All of these individuals need to license copyrights from the copyright holders. So that's where my mind went straight, from the canister technology. And that was the birth of Canistore. So we went on, we built the brand. It was a great time because it was during the Genesis, pre-Genesis, the hype was there, ICP was happening, there was a lot of investors around. We opened an investment round. We raised just under $500,000 to build the ecosystem that we have today. So that's the journey in a short version.
Awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Having so in this journey that started and it's getting close to, well, it's 4 years, I guess. What would you do different now with benefit of hindsight? I know there are many details of things could always be improved, but are there any key things that you would do different in terms of how you like on the investment side or on the order in which you did things, for
There's
example?
loads that I would have done differently. But at the end of the day, I came into this space as a non-technical person.
Okay.
And I was always sort of reluctant at the beginning that I'm coming into such a technical space with no technical experience, expecting to make an impact. And one thing that my friend Greg said to me was, hey, just be yourself. You know, come in with your experience. And that's exactly what I've done. I've made mistakes along the way. You know, there's a lot. We were offered essentially 6.3 million, you know, and we turned down most of it and accepted just under 500,000. Sometimes, you know, I think about that. Should I have taken more? You know, but at the end of the day, we're trying to build a community-owned DAO. We can't have so much tokens and governance go into venture capitalists, because therefore it defeats the purpose of what we're doing here. We want to empower the people. We want to actually have people that live on this platform actually have a say. You know, we have so much people that live on other platforms that have no say.
Certainly. Okay.
You know, so that's one of the reasons. But sometimes I do think about that late at night. You know, another thing I'd say is I would have opened my apps a lot earlier. A lot earlier. I come from sort of, you know, trying to impress something that looks good, something that's smooth, something that will wow people straight away. And I've struggled to achieve that, you know, in a sufficient amount of time. Realistically, what I should have done is opened from the first moment and built with the community. You know,
Interesting.
allowed people to see, you know, the growth. You know, open the app. There may not be, you know, there may be bugs, but hey, let the community report them, fix them. Let the community see that the team is, you know, sufficient to overcome these kind of things. They're the kind of things I would have done differently.
Interesting that you mentioned that, because yeah, I mean, I see and knowing people, my brother is a music artist, for example, and I'm involved, or
Yeah.
and yeah, you're used to polishing things so much because you're like, no, I cannot release something undercooked, because so you have that. But me myself, that I have been a long time in open source and community developed software and technology. Yeah, for it, it's just like put it out there, share the vision. As long as you are candid with that vision and give the community means to get involved. Yeah, I mean, it's so yeah, it's very different, very
Yes.
contrasting visions, but I mean, good that you realize that, and that's
Yes.
great.
It's a learning curve, man. As you said a vital thing, you know. I'm from a space where things have to be polished, you know, in that sense. And in this technical space, it's not like that. You know, there's an alpha. An alpha is meant to be skinny. An alpha is meant to be rough. This is why it's called an alpha. You have
Yes,
your stages, your beta, and you know, and your main release. So yeah, totally right.
interesting. um I was also going to ask you, give me 1 second to see if I have more questions from the audience here. I mean, I have some questions of my own, but if you who are watching us, please post in the chat, either in YouTube or in Airmeet, the any questions that you may have, so that I can share them here with Barry. So Barry, you mentioned that you don't have a technical background, right? So how did you solve that? Did you get a technical co-founder, or did you get support from Definity, your friend, and the people at Definity, or you hired or subcontracted the development of the product? How have you been doing that?
Yeah, I've just had to source developers. You know,
Okay,
I've had to source developers, and it's not easy, you know, because you have
certainly.
to have funding. Developers want to get paid, It's difficult just asking developers to join your team just based on the future tokens. It's very difficult. So I've just had to hire people, in that sense. I met actually Jonathan Green. He's part of this
Yes, yes.
event as well. He was actually our first CTO.
Okay.
So when he was the CTO of Canistore, that was actually during the time that we had the investment, etc. So that's been the journey basically of just hiring developers. And
Okay.
that's the main reason that we source funding and grants.
Okay. Awesome. Have you? I mean, you mentioned the case of your friend at Definity. Have you? How has been your relationship with Definity? What kind of resources do they have, or help that they can provide that you think can be useful for other people who are starting a project on the internet computer?
Definitely, man. It's been a long journey with Definity. I was actually part of their first event for projects. It was called Demo Day, September 2020, and there was 10 projects, right? And we got to showcase our projects to Dominic. The reason why I brought that up is because along the way, I've been a part of quite a few initiatives, things like IC Labs that Definity hold, where as a project they invite you into their building, and you get to speak to high-level engineers about the problems you're having, and they, let you know about what they're working on, etc. So things like IC Labs, the grants, I've had 2 grants now, hopefully going on to my 3rd grant. That's supported us massively regarding development. So there's quite a few initiatives, that the Definity Foundation have available from a technical standpoint.
Awesome. Do you see well, what's next for Canister? That would be my next question. What's next for Canister? Um, what stage are you in now, and what is next?
Interesting times right now. So we're actually opening the apps right now.
Okay.
Right, to the first handful of artists. So if there's any artists right now tuned in, or you've got any friends that are artists, get them to contact Can I Store. So that's at Can I Store, or go on at canistore.io, the website, and sign up for early release, and you'll be able to come in and test with us and give us some feedback. So we're opening the Can I Store mobile app. That's Android only to start with. And we're also opening Can I Play, which is the world's first blockchain broadcast station. So that's amazing. That's opening to the public. It's ready now. So right now it's actually go time at Can I Store. So exciting times.
All right, great. And I mean, it doesn't need to be in technical terms. Well, now with 4 years building on the ICP, I suppose you're much more familiar with the
Yes.
technical side than you were earlier. But what could you share on now that you've been through this journey? Why you think internet computer is a good option to build, either from the technical side, or as you mentioned, from the business side or support side, from the foundation or the networking or the ecosystem. Why do you think it's a good idea to build on internet computer, and why would you recommend it to other people who are looking at platform options for build a decentralized application?
Well, it's the only place you can do this. So it's an easy sell. There's no competition. This is the only place that you can build a DApp 100% on chain. The interesting bit is how the internet computer is actually going to connect with laws and what's the word? GDPR, etc.
Mhm.
Right? So compliance, all of these things are actually coming into play. They're not there yet, but these things are coming in. For example, Can I Store? We're allowing people to protect their copyright. So by law, they'll be able to prove and say, hey, I made this at this time. Here's my documents. You know, here's the proof. Here's the timestamp. You know, this is the only place you can do that.
Awesome.
You
Okay.
know, so it's interesting times. You know, we have the EU subnet coming. You know, Canistores actually inspired the EU subnet. So that was amazing. You know, very proud of that. We was down at the Definity Foundation speaking about GDPR. You know, we started the conversation. So that's amazing. We're hoping to be one of the first applications to be GDPR compliant. So, you know, being able to protect data, protect people's assets, etc. This is next level stuff, you know. We're not even speaking about tokenization yet, the SNS, you know, being able to own an application. You know, you may be able to own something that is as big as YouTube one day, be a co-owner, you know. It's early times right now as well. So coming into the ecosystem, yes, we've been live for a few years, but it's still early. ICP is still in its infancy. If you come now, you're still early. So I'd say come in, check it out, man, and be on the wave with us.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it. I think that's it. We thank you so much for your time, Barry. And
Thanks for
again,
having me.
for those who are watching, again at Canistore, look for at Canistore, and you are in the Play Store also. I
Yes,
suppose
yes.
you will be launching in the Apple Store eventually. I suppose also.
That's right. So next week we'll be in the Play Store, but it would only be a test, the
Okay.
test run. So it's still closed. So we'd have to invite you onto the app. The Can I Play, the broadcast station, that's actually a website that's up. It's a station that's going to be live to everybody. You can connect your wallet during radio shows and earn airdrops, tokens, etc. So come over and check us out at canistore.io.
Canistore.io. I love the Can I Play name.
Yes, definitely. So much coming. We've got Can I Club coming as well. So join the wave, join the community. It's really happening for 2024. So much is happening in the ecosystem for 2024. So, you know, join in.
Okay. Well, thank you. Good night, Barry. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, everybody. And we hope this was, I mean, this was very interesting for me. I hope it's also interesting for you and also give you some good ideas for those who are thinking about how to disrupt a market or I mean, take advantage of the capabilities of the chain and of internet computer to disrupt some markets. Certainly, wherever there's in an industry like creative industry that's been so modeled with middle uh, middlemen or middle entities, certainly there's lots of potential there. So I know that you guys have been experience pain points in other industries or are aware of things that could be improved by decentralization. So we hope that this was useful for you. Thank you so much, Barry, and good night. See you, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
Okie dokie. So I'm finishing the YouTube for today. Thank you, everybody. And hope you continue participating in the live AI Ideathon and submit the information that you need to do so. I was filling in today as host. Javier and Scotty should be back and providing you the information that you need to continue with the Ideathon. Keep keep an eye for any information, and see you around next time. Bye bye.